Welcome to Inner Flow Shift, where science meets spirit, and perception meets profound truth. I'm your host, Nick, and together, we're about to embark on a journey to explore the very fabric of existence, unraveling the mysteries of matter, energy, and consciousness. Here on Inner Flow Shift, we tackle into the big questions: what is reality? Is the physical world truly solid, or is it simply an illusion created by vibrating energy? Could everything we see, touch, and experience just be manifestations of a deeper, unseen truth? Whether you're a curious seeker, a scientific mind, or someone on a spiritual path, Inner Flow Shift is your space to expand your perspective and explore the interconnectedness of all things. So, take a deep breath, open your mind, and get ready to shift your inner flow. We cover in depth through the lens of psychology, spirituality, and neuroscience with a story and its moral. Let's start with a story. Welcome to today's episode of Resentment. Once, in a small village nestled between a river and a dense forest, lived two brothers, James and William. They were inseparable in childhood, always playing together, sharing secrets, and dreaming of the future. But as they grew older, their bond fractured. Their father, a respected merchant, decided to leave his wealth to James, the elder brother, believing he was more responsible. William felt betrayed. He had worked just as hard, yet his father had deemed him unworthy. Resentment took root in William's heart. He left the village, vowing never to see James again. Years passed, and while James flourished, William struggled. Though he built a life elsewhere, his thoughts often returned to his brother, not with love, but with bitterness. One day, William heard that James had lost everything to a fire. Their father's fortune had vanished overnight. Strangely, instead of feeling satisfied, William felt empty. His resentment had fueled him for years, but now, with his brother's downfall, he found no joy, only a hollow void. One evening, a wandering mystic passed through William's village. Seeing the turmoil in William's eyes, he asked, "What troubles you, my son?" William shared his story. The mystic listened patiently, then smiled and said, "Imagine carrying a heavy stone everywhere you go. Would you not tire?" "Yes," William admitted. "And what if I told you the stone was never real? That you had only imagined carrying it?" William was puzzled. "But my resentment is real. James took what was mine." The mystic nodded. "Did he truly take something, or did your mind create the loss? Wealth is impermanent, yet you clung to it as if it defined your worth. Now, you see your brother without it, and you still suffer. Who, then, is your true oppressor, your brother, or your own mind?" That night, William wept. He saw how he had been enslaved by his own bitterness. The next morning, he set off for his childhood home. When he arrived, he found James sitting by the ruined house, staring at the ashes. Without a word, William sat beside him. They looked at each other, and for the first time in decades, William saw not an enemy, but another soul burdened by life's trials. They embraced, and in that moment, William understood the truth: resentment had never harmed James. It had only imprisoned himself. This story illustrates a profound truth: resentment does not punish the one we resent, it punishes us. When we hold on to anger, we chain ourselves to the past, preventing healing and growth. Think of someone you resent. Ask yourself, is my resentment helping me, or is it poisoning me? If I let go, what do I truly lose, my pride, or my suffering? Can I see this person as flawed, just like me, rather than as an enemy? The path to freedom lies not in revenge or justice, but in understanding. Let go, and you will see, the weight you carried was never real. It was only your mind holding on. Are you ready to release it? In truth, William and James were not so different. They both sought happiness, security, and love. They both suffered losses and disappointments. The moment William sat beside his brother without judgment, he saw not an enemy but another human being navigating the hardships of life. When we stop seeing life as me versus them, we realize that we are all part of the same whole. This realization dissolves resentment, replacing it with understanding. Forgiving someone does not mean condoning their actions or forgetting what happened. It means freeing yourself from the emotional grip of the past. When we forgive, we take back control of our inner world, refusing to let pain dictate our present and future. The key to forgiveness is shifting focus from what was taken from us to what we can give ourselves: peace, freedom, and the ability to move forward without emotional baggage. William thought that losing his father's inheritance was an injustice. But in reality, his greatest loss was the years he wasted in anger, missing out on love, joy, and connection. Reflect on the person you resent. What is the root of your anger? Is it a past wrong, or a fear of the future? Consider the possibility that this person is fighting their own battles, their actions a reflection of their own pain. Can you find empathy within your anger? Imagine a world where everyone acted from a place of love and compassion. How would your interactions with this person change? Acknowledge the moments when you've made mistakes. How does it feel to be on the receiving end of forgiveness? Write a letter to the person you resent. In it, express your feelings without holding back. But don't send it. Instead, burn it as a symbolic release of the resentment. Perform a random act of kindness for someone else. It's easier to forgive when we're in a state of giving. Meditate on the concept of impermanence. Like waves on the shore, all things, including resentment, will eventually wash away. Resentment is a deep emotional wound, a lingering poison that seeps into our thoughts and actions, often without us realizing it. Psychology defines resentment as a chronic form of anger and disappointment directed toward a person, institution, or event that is perceived as unfair or unjust. It remains in the subconscious mind, shaping our beliefs, reactions, and even our identity. We dissolve resentment, realizing that the source of our suffering is not outside us but within our perception. This story illustrates a profound truth: resentment does not punish the one we resent, it punishes us. When we hold on to anger, we chain ourselves to the past, preventing healing and growth. The energy we spend nurturing old wounds and replaying past betrayals only deepens our suffering, while the person we resent often moves on, unaffected. Psychologists compare resentment to drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. It creates a cycle of negativity, where our thoughts and emotions remain trapped in a past that can no longer be changed. It fuels stress, anxiety, and even physical illnesses, such as high blood pressure and heart disease. The mind, caught in a loop of bitterness, fails to recognize that true peace is found not in justice or revenge, but in release. William in our story believed that his resentment was a form of power, that by holding on to his grudge, he was protecting himself from future hurt. But in reality, it was the opposite. Resentment had made him a prisoner of his own emotions, keeping him from truly living his life. When he finally let go, he discovered that he had been carrying an unnecessary burden all along. The key to forgiveness is shifting focus from what was taken from us to what we can give ourselves: peace, freedom, and the ability to move forward without emotional baggage. William thought that losing his father's inheritance was an injustice. But in reality, his greatest loss was the years he wasted in anger, missing out on love, joy, and connection. Let's dive into the psychological labyrinth of resentment. It's a silent saboteur, corroding our hearts and minds, often stemming from a deep sense of injustice or hurt. This emotion is a double-edged sword. It can fuel our desire for change or imprison us in a cycle of bitterness. Resentment is like a heavy backpack filled with bricks of anger. Each day, we add another brick until we can barely stand. The path to freedom from this burden lies in recognizing our own role in the narrative. We must learn to see ourselves as the protagonists of our own healing. By reframing our perspective, we can begin to understand that the actions of others are often a mirror to our own fears and insecurities. Thank you for joining me today on Inner Flowshift. If this episode resonated with you, please like and subscribe the show, so that we can bring more insightful shows. I'm your host Nick. Until next time, stay grounded and stay true to yourself.